Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another week of Reddit League Season 5. We were down under last week in Australia, so a big change from the last couple maps, which were pretty small and then we jumped to a world map, obviously. But world maps, especially a theme one, not too difficult. But we definitely saw a lot of struggle in Australia. Very few 25Ks compared to the last few weeks. My name is Zotomo, and I'm joined, as always, by Calamity. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And our guest today is also another European, so the time zone is a little bit nicer for me. Paschtetli, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Paschetli runs a few competitions of his own, so if you're interested in some more, check those out on the Reddit. But for this one, we'll jump right in and take a look at Division One's fixture results. Here we go, Paschetli. Yeah, not a single 25K, but two people, Mr. Blue and Raidman, only 1 point off.
Yeah, crazy skilled players. With some practice, it was certainly possible, but it's really it's expected that not everybody has the skill needed to only need 3 minutes to a 5K. These really rural locations. Sometimes, yeah, you could almost 5 minutes weren't enough to find some useful information, and yeah, just to landscape guess. And if you had some experience with that, and you knew what was, and you had some pole knowledge, it was certainly possible to get a high score, but you needed to practice a lot.
Yeah, Calamity, just a bit unfortunate for you there, just outside of that 100-point draw range against Verdoc.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate. It was the second closest loss of the week, actually, with
Ooh.
just 134 points. But yeah, nothing you can do. Verdict just unfortunately played a little bit better. I still do get a bonus point, but of course I would have liked any any more points. I'll take any points I can get. But at least if you look at sort of the people I'm competing against, sort of against relegation, Bulgar didn't get any points, Basement didn't get any points, so it's not too bad. Well, unfortunately, Verda got 3 points, and Fluky was playing against Bulgar, so 3 points for him as well. Yeah, other than that, I don't think any of the results were particularly surprising. If you look at them, Australia, you always kind of know it's a bit of a practice-intensive map, and with Orpheus not really practicing that much this season, kind of an expected loss against Mr. Blue. Maybe Mr. Blue's 24, like only 1 point off of a perfect score, is the most surprising thing of the week, that he had such a great performance.
Nice. Well, let's look at the table for Division One. Calamity, despite you not picking up a point this week, you do jump up into fifth.
Dude, I did pick up one.
Oh, a bonus point. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Blue with his almost perfect game joins the top four there, moving up. Orpheus down into fourth. And yeah, lots of Frenchmen pretty much occupying the entire lower half of the table. Paschtetli.
Yeah, kind of expected to see the table shaping up as it is right now. I think it's the distance, the difference between the first and the last player are only getting bigger. And with Boxer on 14 points and Bulgar on 3 points, there's not much Bulgar can do to get even close to the promotion zone. So if he is lucky, we're about half into the season. If he's lucky, he can move up some spots, but I think some of the lower players are not going to move up that much as it is from the point they are right now. And some mid-tier players like Calamity or Nimrif or Wordog still have the chance to fight for promotion, I think, but they need to win some games now. Yeah.
Yeah, Calamity. It looks like maybe Boxer, Raidman, and Mr. Blue have starting to get a good hold on those top four places, and maybe only fourth place is really open for the likes of Orpheus, who you said is maybe not practicing too much. You, maybe Verdoc again, or Nimrif, the newcomer.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be like that. I think Boxer and Raidman are probably a shoe in for first and second. Maybe Raidman drops down to third or something like that. But I can't really see either of them dropping out of the top 4 realistically. Yeah, then Mr. Blue is currently in a good position with that. Obviously, there's still some really difficult maps to come, and you never quite know. Let me actually have a look at who Mr. Blue is still playing. He is still playing both Raidman and Boxer, so
I was about to say,
he still has the 2 difficult matches to go. But then again, he's also still playing Fluky, Nimrith, and Basement, so he's also still got some relatively, I mean, they're all difficult matches, but some of the games against sort of the lower half still ahead of him, so it's not all bad for him. And I think if he can keep up what he's shown so far, he should be probably the third player who's relatively secure, at least in the top 4. And yeah, as you said, then it's going to be a pretty interesting fight for that 4th place in the playoff spots. And yeah, I do think it's probably going to be Orpheus and Nimrith, if I'm being realistic. But yeah, we'll find out.
Well, we can start to see how that might shape up in our next week in Idaho, or in our U.S. state map. It's a U.S. or Canadian province, right?
Yes, U.S.
For
state
the
or
map.
Canadian province/territory.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, Mr. Blue does face M the Basement, so not the hardest week for him there. But for the likes of Nimrith and Orpheus, who want to sort of keep those claim on that last top 4 spot, definitely not easy for Nimrith there, like up against Raidman, Mucha, Paschtetli.
Yeah, we have no real close to each other like games. Most of the battles are a bit further apart on the table, and so we don't have some really like highly anticipated and matches to look out for this week in this division. Maybe the most so would be something like Plucky or versus Orpheus, or Werdog Boxer is also maybe something. If Werdog manages to get some points out of this, that would really help him, but it's not that likely against a man like Boxer. And for the rest of the matches, Calamity versus Bulgur, Calamity needs to win this. I think you know that. And Mr. Blue versus Basement is the same for Mr. Blue. And Raidman Nimrith, like I said, Raidman is gonna win this probably, but if Nimrith manages to get some points out of it, that would be great for him.
Yeah, Clemmy, there's always those draw and bonus points to fight for.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think I need to win against Bulgur, but it would definitely help me out a lot. Already lost the game against Verdox, so another loss wouldn't be great. But yeah, we'll see. And as Paschtetli said, the other matches aren't really well, there's not really a lot of them bottom against top, but I do think Pluky against Orpheus, they're very close in terms of points still, even if they're in 4th and 8th respectively, but they're only 4 points apart. So that could certainly be a matchup that turns things around quite a bit in the table. And yeah, also of course going to be interesting to see if the likes of Verdok, Basement, Nimrith can get some points off of the players that are far above them in the table.
Yeah, it would be very nice for them to do that. Yeah, with this week, we would be about over halfway through the season for Division 1, 4, and 5, as they only have 10 players in them. There's only 9 weeks, so week 5 would be that halfway point. So things are starting to become a little bit more concrete for them. We'll move into Division 2, though. It's got a little bit more time, and their results in Australia. And yeah, Paschtetli scores really all over the place here, far down as like 13,000, but one or two, actually only one 24,000. Orbaka just missing out on that.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the Division 2 seed wasn't easy at all. It's also kind of sad to see that they have already 1 yellow card and one red card so soon in the season. But some people are bound to get red and yellow cards, like always. And it's also nice to see like a guy like Snorlax, who's on Urpoka, to see them getting high scores, and to see them getting high scores despite the seeds difficulty, and yeah, the middle of the table, so that's or the middle of the scores, middle point average of the scores, better word, is around 20k, I think. So it was really close, and I assume it was only like one or maybe two locations that were really hard and put most of the players off their game. Yeah, which can be enough. Yeah.
Yeah, Calamity, as I said, it looks like a lot of players maybe had difficulty with one round. Lots of scores, like Paschtetli points out, around 20,000.
Yeah, true. Though it wasn't always necessarily the same round. As we said, it was a pretty difficult seed, and even if we go outside of Division 2, there weren't that many scores that were super high. And a bit of a shame for Ordbocker that he has such a good game in a week where he gets 3 points anyway because he's playing against well, the red-carded player. And I said last week when I mentioned how Moist Flubber just played the wrong seed and then kind of just, I don't know, didn't realize and then got red-carded, that probably a good idea to play early in the week. And then, if you get, notified that you still have to play, you realize. And then Renata said this week that she thought she'd already played at the beginning of the week, and then she, I don't know, maybe didn't log on to Reddit for like 2 days or something, didn't get a notification, and well, apparently nothing helps. Players are going to get yellow carded and red carded no matter what I do. But yeah, apart from that, of course, Snorlax with another great score and winning the top of the table match against Barry, who still had a decent game as well and does get a bonus point for it. Yeah, of course, LCN a bit lucky, I guess, still, almost like every week, with another pretty poor score, but against the yellow card, obviously still 3 points. He's probably the one most out of place in the table, as we'll see later, if you compare his total score to the rest. And yeah, Ice, unfortunately, is just, not a good score from him. Not necessarily his season so far, but we'll see if he does better in some of the later weeks.
As we look at that table, as Calamity mentioned, some of these players really kind of soaring high on the fact that their opponent has not given them the most challenge so far. Obviously, the likes of Snorlax, Real Clyde, and Barry Fishy Bear are wonderful players, but Max and LCN, fourth and fifth there, really benefiting from a couple low-scoring opponents so far, and I think the red card match as well. For them. Yeah, and Renata was in second and plummets all the way down to sixth with a 0 score. So her total score is going to be a bit wonky as well, given her points and where she is in the table for this one. Yeah, so Paschtetli, yeah, kind of I think we've got a sense of who might be in the upper end of this table, but the midfield is still quite shuffled around.
Yeah, the most of the scores are really close, and most of the points, really close together. I mean, Shumi in 7th place has still a chance at the promotion if you add just 3 points to his amount now. You have him in the promotion spots as well, which is kind of unexpected, I think, because they have some really great players in there, like Snorlax or Very Fishy, and also like Renata, she can certainly be one of the promotion favorites, so to say. But if she misses a 1 week again, she will get red carded, which will be sad because she has some she's high skilled, and also sad to see that Istaru is so low in the standings. Maybe he doesn't practice as much because we had some really practice heavy maps so far, and it's not gonna get better anytime soon. But if he does practice a little bit more, I think, and if his opponents are a little bit more of his around his spots on the table, he will move up some spots. I think that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Calamity.
Yeah, it's still all very, very close together. And yeah, as you said, like, kind of you'd think that at the top it would sort of crystallize itself slowly of who is the favorite for the promotion spots and who isn't. But even then, just because they're currently the favorites doesn't necessarily mean that they'll end up there. And with everything being so close together still, you see just how detrimental just one bad week, or in Renata's case, one yellow card could be. Like,
Mm.
if she had just played her game and had an average performance, she probably would have won against LCN and she'd currently be in the lead instead of down in 6th place. So you have to just be consistent and get a good game every week. And that's really the only way to end up in the promotion spots at the end. And yeah, if we're looking down there in the sort of relegation zone and the lower half of the table, it is still everything to play for. I mean, even Ice is only a point behind Ordboka. It's 4 points towards Latom in 8th place. So definitely everything's still possible. And while we do have some very practice intensive maps coming up in some of the some of the games in the second half, there are also some maps you don't necessarily have to practice that much, or where it might not get you that much of an advantage. Like, I guess Hard World, as weird as it sounds, it is a world map still, and there's probably so much that you could practice for it that it turns all the way around again, and you probably don't need to practice all that much for it. Europe as well. I don't think you can practice too much that you don't already know. Canada could be an interesting one, depending heavily on the seed, where in some seeds you might be required to know a couple of things, but probably not that practice heavy, actually. Might be more a case of, just knowing what the highway shields look like and stuff like that, and then just going the right way, as so often in those empty roads in like rural central Canada. But yeah, so everything's still possible for them. And yeah, even up to like Guelo, I think, who's gotten maybe a bit unlucky with opponents so far, he could even still be in the fight for promotion if he just maybe starts getting a bit luckier and has some good performances in the second half of the season.
Yeah, well, let's see what they can do in Idaho, our upcoming map here. Again, no American derbies. They avoid each other for, like, I think, the third week in a row. Shumi is the one who is blessed with the bye week. I don't know if this is the best week for it. Idaho is a pretty reasonable map to get your head around. So he might be hoping it would have come in a different week. For this, yeah, Renata probably looking to bounce back after missing the play. Ice Arrow, not a bad opponent to do that for, Paschtetli.
Yeah, what I instantly noticed about these fixtures is that Snorlax is playing Cameron, or Real Clyde, whatever you want to call him, which is a top of the table clash. I think Snorlax is gonna win this. I think he's the better player of these two, but maybe I'm wrong, and Clyde is gonna correct me. And also, since Clyde is the American guy, that might be an advantage for him. So yeah, I think it's kind of even. Now that I think about it, really. Then again, Urbuka versus ICN is also a match that I'm looking forward to, because, well, ICN is now on 5th place, but I think their skills are about on the same level. Depends on how much Urbuka is gonna practice. I think he doesn't practice that much as others do. Also, that ICN is an American guy again, which makes him the favorite. But I generally think this could be an interesting game. And then Aitharu versus Renata, which is more of a bottom versus top clash, where Renata has probably the better, will be on the better end, but we'll see. Yeah, and Shumi versus Moist, where Shumi has the bye week. He just needs to play, which is gonna help him climb up some spots, which is nice always.
Yeah, Calamity, we have quite a few Americans in this one, so maybe a bit of a home field advantage, but their matchups aren't the hardest for them, except for Clyde's, at least.
Yeah, it could be a bit of an advantage. I don't know if Idaho is really the best state you want to get as an American. I feel like you'd have your biggest advantage in a very populated state, where there's a lot of smaller towns and villages that you might perhaps know better than some of your opponents. Whereas in Idaho, it's kind of like, well, it's just not that complicated to play. You have quite a bit of a diverse landscape, and there's not that many cities and towns that you'd need to look at in practice to that you can remember them. I do think it's probably still a slight advantage, but maybe not as much as some of the past states we had were like California or especially Pennsylvania a couple of seasons ago. I do think that it's still enough of an advantage where if you've got two players that are of a similar level, or if the Americans even like slightly favored in the first place, regardless of map, then it just sort of, I don't want to say guarantees, but it pushes it more in their favor to the point where they really should be able to pull out a win. I do think that Snorlax and Clyde is a very interesting matchup, where we could even see two very good scores, and I wouldn't be surprised about a draw there. I'm not entirely sure how well Clyde knows Idaho, but I could definitely see it happen. Then I'd probably expect Barry to win against Latomp unless Latomp does practice quite a bit, which from what we've cast of his game so far, it doesn't seem like that's the case. Then, of course, Orboka against LCN is an interesting one as well, because you remember the table, probably don't remember the exact numbers, but I looked at it again just now, and Orboka actually does have the third highest total score, being down there in 10th place. And LCN has, I think, if we ignore like the yellow and red cards, he's only got like 400 points more than Ice and like the second lowest total score. So even though LCN is in 5th and Orboka is in 10th, just going by form, Orboka should be heavily favored. And yeah, so we'll see if the home field advantage makes up for that. And then, yeah, I think Ice is going to be in for another rough week. And I think probably, if we ignore like Clyde and Snorlax, the other closest matchup might be Guelo against Max, which I could see being a very interesting game as well.
Definitely looking forward to all of these. Plenty of Americans to watch in their home country. For Division 3 and their results in Australia, probably the seed was a little bit nicer compared to Division 2. The scores were a little bit higher. Actually, lots of close games. I think probably the most interesting that stood out to me was the fact that I think Steal the Snake and Hugo had some of the biggest point difference, which I definitely would not have expected going into this one, Paschtetli.
Yeah, me neither. All players are pretty close together score-wise, and in other divisions we had, not seen yet, but we have much bigger score differences than in this one. The seed wasn't that hard, if I remember correctly. Also, yeah, it's nice to see some high scores for once, in comparison to the last division we looked at. Yeah.
Yeah, Calamity, Freckles and Bubat getting the good week, I think, for a red card matchup, not having to worry about Australia too much. But yeah, other than that, kind of a bit of a topsy-turvy kind of matchup. I mean, Seppo and Close putting up good challenges, the Germans, but not able to beat their opponent. Steelers Nick coming short against Hugo. WTF has been up there towards the higher end of the table, but getting the better of Paschtetli there.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate for Paschtetli. Again, he probably would have very much benefited from any points here, but just a little bit too low for a bonus point as well. I think he would have needed about 300 points more for that. And yeah, just losing out to WTF. And yeah, Moore winning a pretty important game for him against Closed by a pretty small margin as well. And yeah, then Paulinho, not the best of scores, but got the win that he needed against Seppo in the relegation fight. And yeah, surprisingly good score from Hugo there. I know that he doesn't really have time to practice much, barely has time to play this season. I don't know if he's just had a better week for him where he could maybe practice a bit, or if he just was decent in Australia to begin with, and with a not too difficult seed maybe could make use of that. Steal the Snake, still a decent score, also gives him a bonus point for just about getting in there in the top 6, which I found quite funny because he was someone who recently mentioned how, if players had gotten a red card in a division, then maybe the median and the top 50% for bonus points should be adjusted. And now he's the one who's actually in 6th place and would it would be a detriment to him. Of course, I know him as enough that I know he still stands by his opinion and he still thinks that he shouldn't have gotten a bonus point. But I just felt that was quite funny to look at. And yeah, as you said, Boopat and Freckles probably won't be too unhappy about where their free points come from.
Yeah, so looking at that table, it is pretty close in the top 5 or so. Only 3 points separating Almond in first from WTF in 5th. But then after that, there's kind of a mid-table really forming up, and then the bottom lights of Seppo and Paschtetli really struggling to pick up any points here at all. Paschtetli.
Yeah, one thing that stands out to me is the aces of Armand, which are higher than the aces from everybody else across the division, with 6 aces more than Freckles and Closed, which is, and also 3 perfect scores, which makes him almost promoted already in my opinion, because yeah, he's a great player, I know that, and if he keeps up his game, he will almost the other players will not stand a chance, I think. And yeah, you got Silas' next point wrong. He has 7 points, not 6, in the standings.
Oh.
Yeah, no, not that big of a problem, but still. Yeah, and also Silas' next aces and score difference, and yeah, also total score there is really high. So I think if he starts winning now, or if he's getting more lucky now in the next couple of weeks, he will move up a couple of spots. I think he has a big chance at the promotion battle, or at least the battle for the 4th place. But then again, it needs these are like 5 points, no, 4 points because of the mistake, which he needs to make up, which isn't easy, but certainly possible. Depends on these matchups in the next couple of weeks. In the relegation fight, there is, yeah, the players are, I mean, Seppo and Pastek are close together, but then Polino's on 7 points, and which is another win apart from, no, away from Pastek, which is kind of difficult if you're already in a bad spot to make up, but I think it's possible. Also, I'm not sure if Pastek and Seppo have played each other yet, which will give one of them certainly a chance on getting 3 more points.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Calamity, a few things. Yeah, WTF and Hugo's total score kind of really sticking out there. They're in the middle of the table, probably flying a little bit higher than they should be given their performances, but they'll be happy with that.
Well, WTF's is just a mistake on the table while we're talking about mistakes. And Hugo got a yellow card.
It's all these red and yellow cards are messing up my math.
Yeah, WTF still that's just a mistake. He has not got any yellow card, and well, I guess maybe he's played against someone who got a red card, but I don't know how that. I don't
he's
know.
missing like an entire game's worth of points. So
yeah, he is. But yeah, I think as we said, as you said at the start, kind of seen a bit of a gap now between the top half and the bottom half, but it could be quickly closed. Just from what we've seen so far, I don't think it necessarily will be. Like, there might be one person who manages to rise up from the bottom half to make their way up there. But I do think that we'll probably see a free promoted players out of the current top 5, unless we see any real surprises in the second half of the season. And yeah, as Paschtetli said, I do think Armand is the heavy favorite for it. Even just looking at the aces, it becomes pretty clear. And apart from that, yes, it's all very, very close together, and it's difficult to call who really would be the favorite to go up alongside him. And yeah, the bottom half, everything's looking towards a game between Pastek and Seppo to decide at the end who will get relegated into Division 4. But there are still a lot of weeks to play, and yeah, they do play each other in week 9, which is Canada, which could be an interesting game as well, because yeah, I think both of them don't really necessarily practice much, so that could be like the one week where you could potentially go out of your way, and even if you don't normally practice much, you could say, okay, maybe I'm going to put an hour or two into this, and just to make sure I win my game here this week. And it kind of depends though as well, because if you finish 9 for 10, it literally doesn't matter. So it depends on if you still got a chance to make it out of those two relegation playoff places, maybe to 8th place.
Well, in Idaho, the matchups are pretty interesting. Definitely WTF and Armand towards the top of that table matchup. And we've got the German derby there, Seppo enclosed, Paschtetli.
Which close needs to win, certainly, if he wants to have a chance at the promotion. If he doesn't win, yeah, he will drop down a few spots, and promotion spots will move away some points. Yeah, then Hugo and Budbat, I think it's gonna be interesting because they both need to practice, and I know Hugo doesn't practice that much this season, which makes Budbat even more so a favorite. But if Hugo manages to practice this week, surprisingly, he still has a chance, I think. Then Pastek and Stilisnik with the bye weeks, which is gonna help them a lot. Stilisnik will move up some spots and will move closer to the promotion spots, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, Clement, any of these matches stand out to you?
There's a couple of interesting ones, but they're all kind of scenarios where you have one player that should be favored, in the sense that they're currently in the higher position in the table, and they should win their game if they want to keep their hopes of promotion alive. Although, you know, obviously, I think in the current state, you can afford a loss potentially, even if you're up there, but it's going to make the rest of the season just so much harder. So you'd rather avoid that if you can. And yeah, closed. So he's lost a promotion playoff in season 3, and then he came 5th in season 4. So it's really about time that he makes it to, well, he gets promoted, because he's been there or thereabouts the whole time, and I feel like he just might end up being in that unlucky place where he just has another season like that and somehow just misses out on promotion. But yeah, a win against Seppo is an absolute must here. The other matches are a lot more even, even if, you know, as I said, it's top against bottom, partially at least. I do, probably looking at these matches, expect mostly the top of the table players to do well. Maybe if we have an easy seed, there'll be a lot of draws again, but they should have a bit of an advantage at least. I'm not necessarily sure about Hugo. Maybe he can put up a fight against Budbat. Freckles is always a bit of a wild card, and you never really know what performance you'll get. So maybe a bit of a chance for Paulinho after that win just now in this week, that he could make use of that sort of rise in form and just keep going and just increase the gap between him and the relegation playoff places.
Very nice. Well, let's look at Division 4 now, and these two split divisions and their results in Australia. We will see Paschtetli's name here for the first time, finally. Not the best of luck against Solar Sensei, who dropped very few points in this one.
Yeah, well, not my best performance so far. I was pretty proud on the first 3 weeks so far, and now to see my Australia game makes me kind of sad. I think I expected it, because Australia is not my favorite place to play in. I had the second worst score of my division, which, yeah, is not that good, I guess. It should have been better, but I didn't find any information in about 2 rounds, I think, and just plunked it in the right state. Yeah, that it goes like that sometimes. You can't really do anything about it. Solar Sensei is certainly a strong player, and I hadn't had that much hopes to win against him anyway. The German derby, where Flipster is the winner, I think, which is really important for the standings, because Sepp Kirst was also like a top half of the standings player, or is still. And Flipster, with Flipster winning this match, he'll be in the top half of the table for the rest of the season. I think he's one of the favorites for sure. Then Mick beaten Soviet Spy with a slightly disappointing score, I think, on his home country. There were some better players in this division, which I didn't really expect. I think Australia is a map where, if you know the country well, and especially if you live there, you have a big advantage. Dromi Wacolog, yeah, easy win for Dromi, which is kind of expected. Dromi is also a lower half of the division player, but Waco is in the moment in the last spot with 0 points, I think. So yeah, Dromi needed to win this one, and he did, which is great for him. Then for the to finish things off, Hexalt and Lunacy. Hexalt winning also a really important game for the promotion. Lunacy is certainly also a candidate for promotion, and if Hexalt, and since Hexalt managed to win this one, he will move some points away from 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, Calamity, definitely not the best week for the bottom of the table. A lot of those players who are struggling to climb out of the relegation zone just had some decent scores for Australia, and just was just not enough still.
Yeah, a bit of an unfortunate game for Wakelock. He actually played pretty well and just had one round in there that cost him the whole game and any chances of a win. If it weren't for that round, he probably would have won that game. That's just really not what you want to see when you're currently in last place with 0 points. Of course, Dromi will take those 3 points. He definitely needs them as well. Other than that, yeah, I mentioned how my loss against Murdoch was the second closest. Well, Lunacy's loss against Hexalt was the closest this week. So it's definitely a bit unfortunate for him, especially in the fight for promotion, that even just a point there would have been really useful to him. Especially if we look at the fact that, his score wasn't even enough for a bonus point, which is another unfortunate thing there. At least Soviets, even in his loss against Mick Pete, who had a fantastic game this week, on the highest score in Division 4A. Yeah, at least he picks up 1 point as a bonus point for the 3rd highest score in his division. Even though, yeah, of course it will be. He won't be too happy about losing in his home country. Yeah, Flipster, of course, also a very important win in sort of the promotion battle against Sepp Kirst. And yeah, Solar Sensei will also take his 3 points, and that just, is a very good game for him as well, to make sure he stays up there in the fight for promotion as well.
Yeah, so take a look at the Division 4A table. Soviet down there in 9th with 4 points. And McPitt down at 5th at 7 points. 3 points separate. It's only 1 game, but they are running out of weeks to change things around. So definitely the bottom of the table pretty open, Paschtetli. And then just as close to the top, Flipster, Hexalt, Solar Sensei, only 1 point separate in all of them. They're the exact same win-draw-loss ratio. Just the only problem is the fact that they're just those bonus points really separating them.
Yeah, I finally moved away from my single-digit score difference, which was bound to happen anytime soon, especially in a map like Australia, which I hadn't that much of a chance anyway. Also, a funny score, a total score for Dromi on a kind of round number, which is kind of nice to see. Then I think the middle of the table is really close, and anyone from like Lunacy or McPeak to Soviets can still change that can still change very much in the next 5 weeks. I think the skill of these players, including me, I'm gonna say that now, is about equal. And I think depending on the map, we all can win some games and lose some. Yeah, and I think Flipster and Hexalt, Solar and Lunacy are the top 4 players which will fight for promotion in this division.
Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, especially looking at the sort of the total score, you just see how close it really is for a lot of these players. I mean, the top 4, as well as Sepkirst and Sixth, have not dropped. Well, no one of them has dropped more than 634 points in the first 4 weeks. And yeah, even apart from that, there's still a lot to play for and a lot that can move around in this division specifically. We do reach the halfway point now. We'll cross it into the next week. So we're slowly getting to the stage where some of the players lower down will probably not be fighting for promotion anymore. I could imagine it maybe down to Sepkirst if they get if the likes of Mikpete and Sepkirst get a really good end of the season. But any further down, I don't think it's likely to get into the promotion spots anymore, and should just be focused on staying in the division. And I think if you get, if you get like 5 perfect scores, anything can happen, but that's probably not likely.
Nice. Well, their matchups get pretty interesting here. Paschtetli, you up against Soviet Spy, definitely a survival matchup already, only half of the season, but vital for either one of you here. And towards the top, though, Flipster and Solar Sensei, also a very important match to decide maybe who gets that automatic promotion spot.
Yes, indeed, yeah. Me against Soviets, or I against Soviet Spy. Which is kind of funny because last week I played against the American guy on the Australian map, and now I play against the Australian guy on the American map. I'm glad it's this way around, but these are still good players, which can make my life in this division hard. I certainly need to win this game, and I'm currently practicing, or not right now, but currently practicing a lot. But yeah, I think I can win this with if I have a good game, but yeah, I'm not that confident. Mikpete needs to win this game for sure. Waco would be nice for him if he could score some points and move up. Maybe no, he actually can't move us up a spot, but if he gets some points and gets closer to the next players who are next to him. Sepkirst Hexhold is also a match, as well as Flipster versus Solar Sensei, to look out for a top of the table clash.
Yeah, anyone you're looking forward to, Calamity?
I think Sepkirst against Hexal and Flipster Solar Sensei are definitely very important games for the promotion spots. And I feel like they'll probably already be a good indication of who we might see in those automatic spots. I also feel like Wakelog, sort of this and the next week, are the deciding weeks for him if he still has a chance to make it to the relegation playoff spots or not. He needs to start picking up some points now. If he goes out of the next 2 weeks with 0 points, I think it's pretty much done for him, because the other players are also going to be picking up points. Paschtetli and Soviet playing against each other, so someone is going to pick up points there. It's unavoidable for him. And I feel like in Idaho, again, pretty interesting to have these top of the table clashes, and kind of similar to what I've said. I don't remember for which division. I feel like Division 2 before, where if we get an easy seed, we might have a couple of draws here, even at the top. That would also, of course, just keep it all close together and would just delay the decision on who's going to get promoted into the next weeks.
All right, so moving on to Division 4B, and we get our first 25,000 point games of the week. Carp and Diesel both picking up 25s, much to the chagrin of Porkstick, to put up a very good score and only comes out with a draw for that one. Other than that, yeah, maybe Laban Greb not having the best of weeks. Jake, very happy with that win. Paschtetli.
Certainly, yeah. Jake has been struggling so far, or yeah, he wasn't that lucky with his games and his matchups. And it's nice for him to get some points, to move up some spots. Then I was really surprised when I saw Carp and Diesel getting these 25Ks. I didn't expect that on this seed. The other weeks, I thought, yeah, certainly it was possible to 25K these seeds, but not on this one. I was really surprised. Headache me and Zotomo and Lab and Grab on about my amount. Yeah, also her Yemine on my amount of points I scored. Which, yeah, it would have been nice for me if I was in this division. I would have stood a better chance to get some points. But yeah, it is how it is. And Nakiro with about mediocre game winning against Yemine, which is nice for him. I think it elevates him into the promotion spots. Yeah, not sure.
Yeah, Calamity. There was, for me at least, there was one round that was a little bit tricky. I definitely think that 24, 25 was definitely doable. I think you got a city or a road number in every single round. It was a little bit tough. The very first round, I didn't know where the town was. Obviously, Australia is pretty big. It takes you a long time to look. And I was just had to take a guess and guess the wrong side of the country, unfortunately.
Yeah, just again, maybe in your case, shows a little bit of a lack of practice because Tamworth is, while it's not like a huge city, it is one of the bigger cities around in New South Wales. So it isn't super difficult to find. But obviously, if you haven't seen it before, you wouldn't necessarily know that and might be looking a bit more zoomed in than necessary. And yeah, I think a bit of an unfortunate game for Laban Greb because he had actually a very similar game to Wakerlock, where it also happened in the exact same round, where they both dropped pretty much all of their points, while Wakerlock, I think, dropped like 1 or 2 more points in another round. Laban had 4 aces apart from that, and just had that one round in Western Australia, in sort of the outskirts of Perth, where both of them just didn't really get any points and didn't even get the right state, which is quite unfortunate. I guess shows a bit of a lack of practice as well on their part. But yeah, he should have won that game, or could have won that game against Jake easily as well. But Jake will definitely take it. And yeah, Carp and Diesel just keep going with wins and perfect games all the time. And yeah, Porkstakes with a great performance. A bit unfortunate there that he only gets 2 points out of it. But definitely could get his morale up and keep him going for the next weeks. Finally, first win for Triple High as well. I'm sure she'll be happy about that. And yeah, Nakura, an important win in a promotion fight against Teimini as well.
Well, looking at their table, yeah, Diesel and Carp, of course, at the top there. Lots of bonus points and wins for them. No losses yet. Obviously, they got 3 perfect games apiece. Hard to lose when you've got that kind of a score. But besides them, the middle of the table, third all the way down, and I would even say 7th or maybe 8th is pretty close going into that halfway point. Paschtetli.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Diesel and Carp certainly favorites for promotion. One other thing, I think Carp has the highest total score over all divisions so far. Correct me if I'm wrong. He has only dropped 4 points so far, which is amazing. I didn't think that was possible, especially on that hard maps as we had, and we're going to have still. So there's still room to drop some points. That also shows how much practice they both put in this competition, which is nice to see, certainly. Yeah, there's forming a gap between Carp and Nakiro. Yeah, Nakiro, Haryemine, Jake, and maybe even Hidikmi have a chance at promotion spots, I think, if they win some games and have the right amount of luck and some nice opponents for them. Then in the relegation spots are also, yeah, I mean, it's possible to get out of them for Treblinka and Parkside certainly, but maybe not so much for you. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely see. Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, I think at this point, Diesel and Carp are almost guaranteed to be first and second. It's just a very interesting fight between the two to see who will end up in the automatic promotion spots and who will have to play the playoff game or the playoff games. Because in those, anything can still happen. You could have a fantastic season. Like we said, Carp, 19 aces so far. There's just been one round where he didn't get a perfect score. And even then, it could all be for naught if you then end up in the promotion playoffs and make one mistake in the semifinal and you're gone. It can go as quick as that. So you really want to be in that first place, ideally. But yeah, I think the first and second are guaranteed. So that leaves a pretty interesting fight for third place and to maybe get in that promotions playoff spot and then hope for a mistake by some of the other players in the actual playoff. Yeah, I think it's still pretty close there. I think realistically we're looking at third to sixth from Nakiro to Hedegmi at players who are probably going to end up around the, or near that spot. I think if it was more than one spot, maybe then you could see like Laban Greb or Pork Steak still fighting for it. But the fact that it is just one spot they're fighting for means that all four from third to sixth would have to make or would have to lose like 2 games in the last 5 weeks. And I just don't think that's very likely. So again, if we see some spectacular performances from Laban or Pork Steaks and just perfect game after perfect game, then it's still possible, but I just don't think it's likely to happen.
Well, they can certainly try to start in Idaho coming up next. But yeah, definitely difficult matchups for Pork Steaks and Jake Lyons in their home country, but up against Diesel and Carp might not be the easiest matchup for them. And we do have an American derby. Yeah, Pork Steaks and Carp, both Americans actually. So that could definitely be one to watch. Carp, having dropped almost no points so far this season, is actually on home turf for a change. So maybe it'll even just keep getting better for him there at Paschtetli.
Yeah, I know Carp is a great player, but I'm not sure how well he does on his home turf. We'll see, I guess. One other thing is Zotomo versus Laban Greb, which is more of a bottom table clash. It is kind of your home at field advantage since you are American. I'm not sure how well you know the state of Idaho, but yeah, you'll show us, I guess. And then Treblinka versus Nakiro. Nakiro needs to win this game if he wants to stay in his third spot. And Diesel versus Jake, as mentioned, is a match to look out for as well. Both are very skilled players. I know Jake is great with the United States, and I think he has a fair chance at winning this and making it easier for Carp to get the first place of this division if Jake manages to win this game, which then again is not that likely to happen since they're probably gonna make a high score draw. I think that's most likely to happen.
I was about to say, I could definitely see a draw between Diesel and Jake at the 24, 25 level for sure. Yeah, as you mentioned, I am originally from the United States, even though I now reside in Japan. And I know Idaho pretty well. I mean, I have family who live there. I grew up one state over. So that's definitely my neck of the woods for the US. So we're back to my old stomping grounds for this one, Calamity.
Yeah, so you'd better get a win there.
Yeah, come on, Laban, don't get a perfect score.
Yeah,
give me a chance at least. Drop more than 100 points and give me a chance to get a win.
Yeah, it is definitely at the stage where you now need a win to, or at least like 2 or 3 points to keep your chances alive to at least make it to the relegation playoff spots. Because the others aren't sleeping either and they're picking up points too. Pork Steaks against Carp is an interesting game for sure as well. To see the American derby. Is it the first American derby we're seeing this week?
It might be. Yeah.
I feel like we haven't
said it very much. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting one to look at for sure as well. And yeah, then Herik Michael is kind of like a duel, almost like not necessarily a last chance, obviously, because we're still at the halfway point, but a pretty indicative duel already for who of those will be at least more favored going into the second half, fighting for that third place.
Definitely. Well, moving over to Division 5A and their Australia results, and we see some very interesting scores. Two low-scoring players in Soundbite and Ollie under 20,000 will definitely be happy to walk away with surprise wins there, I think, for them. But yeah, two Americans actually doing quite well in Australia. At least they share the similar language as Xander and Artificial there, Paschtetli.
Yeah. I just noticed that Vincenzo only has 3,000 points. Is that correct? Is that true?
It is correct. I think he had. Did
Oh.
he say anything about? I think he might have just had no time and just clicked through just to play.
I feel like he might have just given up halfway through the seed. I looked at it, and it didn't seem like he just clicked through. So I assume he just saw after a couple of rounds that he wasn't getting anywhere. Like, he still took 4.5 minutes for the first round, then took 3 minutes for the second, a minute for the third. He still took 4 minutes again for the fourth round. But at that point, he had gotten cumulatively about 1,000 points. So he just took 6 seconds in the last round and doubled his score.
Yeah,
there you go. You gotta hate when that happens. Like the guess you try the least and you get the most amount of points.
Yeah. It reminds me of my Cambodia performance in my first season. I think it was about a year ago. I couldn't practice that much, and it was a practice heavy map. So yeah, the same thing happened to me then. But yeah, in this division, we have some big separation. Apart from Vincenzo, we have some 15k, some 20k, and some 25k turf scores, which is shows different players scoring different amounts of points on the same seed. That shows some differences of skill, and some players are getting some occasions that others are not, which is bound to happen on the lower divisions especially. And Clemens, kind of sad to see him not scoring that much points. I thought he was a favorite for promotion this season since his great performance in the Map Battle League, and yeah, his the amount he plays Geoguessr or his activeness, so to say, in the last couple of months. It is kind of sad to see him not doing that well and losing games, but yeah, we can't do anything about it, and yeah.
Clement, any matches you'd like to commentate on?
No, I don't want to. No.
No, nothing to say. Move on.
Yeah, I feel like most of the results, at least, the ones at the top of the table, are kind of what you would have expected. We see wins for Xander, Ollie, and Artificial, and they keep going. Win for Settlin as well. We've kind of mentioned it last week, where we weren't necessarily sure if he would manage to keep up with the top three, but so far he's doing it. Good score this week as well. A bit unfortunate for Jamabi, I guess. Decent score for him as well, the third best of the week. But yeah, against Xander, no chance for a win there, but he does pick up a bonus point at least. Soundbite for him, it's a pretty important win as well against Bombadil, sort of fighting to keep in the division and not get relegated again in his comeback season, so to speak. There's some pretty important points there for him too.
Looking at their table, while the results were kind of all over the place, really nobody moved in the table. Xander and Artificial swap at the top of the table, and Pigwin and Clemens towards the bottom there. 4 players on 10 points here, Paschtetli, very close, and Soundbite only 2 points away from that.
Yeah, the top 4 players are all on 10 points. There can still can happen anything and everything. Sunbite also has a chance on the promotion, I guess, but he is kind of further behind also with total score and aces. Then Chamabi and especially Bombadil in the second to last place with 12 aces and one perfect game. I mean, he has a chance of getting out of the promotion spots, maybe, but it's hard if he increases his performance over the next couple of weeks and practices some games. He has certainly a chance of getting out, but it's hard. Also, same thing for Clemens. Yeah.
Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, I feel like Bombadil now is in that rough position. Vincenzo as well, but I feel like Vincenzo, just from his performances so far, only 5 aces, lowest total score by quite a lot. He's probably, even though it's just 2 points to Penguin in seventh, he's probably not got too good of a chance anymore anyway. But yeah, for Bombadil and I guess to an extent Clemens as well, yeah, we're reaching the stage in the season where they gotta at least keep close to the people ahead of them. If they can manage to do that, then it's still open. They'll have some matches against each other where they can win and turn things around. But yeah, they need to keep with the pack and manage to not drop too far behind. Then everything can still happen. But yeah, at the top, still seeing a very, very close battle. As we said, Zetterlin, just looking at his scores and aces and everything, he shouldn't necessarily be a contender for one of these 3 spots, but he's still in the same amount of points. So any just poor week from one of the top 3 can immediately put him into those top 3 positions. And we know from past seasons that you don't always need to have the highest total score or need to have the most amount of aces to end up in one of the best places. So the top 3 definitely need to be careful and they can't afford too many mistakes.
Nice. Well, looking at their fixtures, it is definitely a top of the table versus the bottom sort of week. Artificial taking on Vincenzo and Xander taking on Bombadil, literally top and the bottom there. Also, the Polish Derby to look forward to in this one, Paschtetli.
Yeah, I look forward to that very much. Also because I think Penguin is not a bad player. If he practices some games, I think he has a chance of winning that game. Also because it's one of the lowest division. Yeah, 5A and 5B are together. Since this lowest division, anything can happen really, especially in this in the middle of the table or towards the middle of the table. Artificial will get 3 points out of this game. I think that is pretty yeah, that's pretty much set in stone, I think. Bombadil and Xander, I think it's gonna be another week where Bombadil in the American Derby will get a nice score, but probably has no chance of gaining 3 points out of the game against a top of the table player. And Oli and Jamabi, also a match where I think can happen. Yeah, towards the middle of the table.
Yeah, definitely. And Calamity, your countryman Clemens, if he wants to turn his fortune around, kind of up and down this season, again, Soundbite would not be a bad game to do it in.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good game to get a win there, or at least, a few points. Also just to keep Soundbite closer to himself, because Soundbite is sort of the edge between, well, in fifth place between the positions that are safe and the positions that will have to fight against relegation. So a win there would definitely help not only Clemens himself, but everyone else down there that's currently in the relegation zone to keep that option still open of managing to get out of that. Bombadil is a bit unlucky. I feel like if he could have chosen any week to go up against Xander, probably wouldn't have been this one. He probably would have chosen a bit of an easier opponent for a map where he's probably got a pretty good chance to get a good score. But yeah, against Xander, 3 points, as Paschtetli said, not very likely. Could still happen, of course, but we'll have to see. Cephalin against Penguin, definitely another interesting matchup, as we said. If Penguin can win that one, then same situation kind of as with Clemens and Soundbite, would just keep Cephalin down there and would keep options open. If Cephalin can win it, then he just stays up there in the sort of in the top 4. And I feel like if Cephalin wins this game, it would already kind of create a pretty big gap between the top 4 and everything that's further down below. So that would also be a pretty important game for him.
Mhm. Very nice. Well, moving over to 5B, our last little group here, and Paschtetli, Neusel definitely taking advantage of the red card week, not really worrying about Australia at all, but some very nice scores by the likes of Jack, Danny Blonde, and De Quimmer. I think I've never had to actually say his name before, so I'm not quite sure exactly how I say it. Something like that.
Probably, yeah. I know Neusel a little bit. I've talked to him over Discord a little. Not about this week, but in general. I know he's a player that doesn't practice much, and he just plays with the skill that he has, which is getting harder and harder as we move through the seasons, because the skill is getting higher and higher, and players that don't play much or don't practice much will slide down through the divisions. That happened to Neusel as he got relegated from last season. So it doesn't surprise me that he only scores 8,000 points, especially in a bye week where there's not much to play for. And yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that DQ Mir, whatever, only gets like 1,000 points score difference out of his amazing game against Geoguessr. Also sad to see that Geoguessr doesn't get 3 points, or no, doesn't get 3 points out of his amazing score, which he would have almost against anyone. Yeah. Then there are some players that didn't do well, like yeah, especially Paranoid and Piquet, but there are fewer players than in the other half of the division, the 5A.
Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, Jax finally showed up. Great score from him there, highest score, not only in the division, but well, not only in his specific division, but across Division 5 entirely. Generally, Division 5B had the slightly higher scores this week, with like Jack, Dukmir, and Danny Blondes all having higher scores than the highest scorer of Division 5A, which might be a good sign for them going into the promotion playoff, at least for those who will manage to get there. Yeah, Sheldon not with the best score this week, but still gets a win out of it and keeps himself up there at the top of the table. And yeah, as we said with Neusel, probably didn't care too much about this week. Probably knew he was never going to get a 25k anyway, so why try? I guess. Yeah, Paranoid hasn't really shown much this season so far. And yeah, as we said, a bit unfortunate for Geoguessr to not get more than 1 point with that pretty good performance.
Yeah, looking at that table, Sheldon, Danny Blondes, and still pretty close to the top of the table. Lots of shuffling here, but just a little bit, kind of 1 or 2 places moving for everybody for that one. Points still pretty close throughout most of the table. Sheldon a little bit of a lead with Danny Blondes not too far behind, but third down into even 7th, or we could even say maybe 8th, only a game or 2 away from each other. Paschtetli.
Yeah, I feel like this half of the division is a bit higher skill than the other one, maybe. Also, they have the highest amount of aces is like, yeah, no, it's not actually higher. No, that's my bad. Looked at the wrong statistic, but they have, it's more separated. Sheldon and Danny have more points, both more points than the best players from the other half of the division. And also, as we saw in this week, the scores were on average higher, and also the 3 best scores of this division were better than the best of the other half. That makes it more harder, just harder for some less skilled players to do well in this half. Yeah, and that explains also why there's a bigger gap between Sheldon and the rest of the divisions. So, yeah,
very nice. Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, Sheldon, as I said, with not the best score, but with the win keeps in front, and that's the most important part. And looking at his total score, he definitely deserves to be there as well. Behind that, it's still pretty close. Danny Blondes at least has a bit of an advantage there, 2 points ahead of Anonono and Jack. And yeah, a bit unfortunate for Joguer. We mentioned it in the game as well, but his total score is actually pretty decent, at least good enough to be around, like, fighting for 5th, 6th potentially. So for him to be down there 9th and already pretty far behind on points as well is unfortunate for him. But if he can just keep the total score high and keep going through the next weeks, I think there's a good chance that he can at least make it to 7th. Then he's got 2 playoff games at most to keep himself in the division and maybe try again next season. I feel like he's got a better chance than Paranoid, even though Paranoid does actually already have a win. I don't actually know, was that against a red carded player? It was, yes. So
Yeah.
he doesn't have a real win, just the red card already factored in his score. So yeah, Joguer does still have that red card game to come up, so it's not as bad as it looks for him. But yeah, and then I feel like anywhere really from probably Anonono to Dukmir could still feasibly fight for a promotion spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking at their upcoming matches, it is this week that Joguer has his red card match, so he can maybe put Idaho to rest very early and get to practicing the next country coming up, so he doesn't have to worry about this one at least. But yeah, pretty interesting matches here, vital for kind of both of the players here. We got kind of a mixed bag of not bottom of the table, but lower down versus upper. Neusel wanting to turn his fortunes around has to do it against Sheldon. Danny Blondes in second. De Quimmer has to challenge him and try to climb up the table from that. And I think the closest matchup we have is Jack and Biget in this one, Paschtetli.
Yeah, probably, yeah. That's certainly one to look out for. The only American in this division, Sheldon versus Neusel. Neusel is not going to stand a chance against Sheldon. I think that's pretty much, sure who's going to win this match. Then, we have no French derby this week, which is not that big of a surprise as in other divisions. Like in the division, like I don't know, was it 3 where they have like 5 Americans and still no derby? But the lower, the players with the lower amount of scores need to start picking up points certainly, but it's not getting any easier with their opponents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everybody but Neusel will be happy this week, Calamity, in the sense that they don't have to play an American.
Yeah, true. There's still some interesting games apart from that as well, but of course, yeah, for Neusel, probably not realistic to get a win out of that, but we'll see. Maybe he can still get a good performance and pick up a point at least. Yeah, for the other games, Jack against Biquet and Dukmir against Danny Blondes, both pretty crucial games that could have pretty significant consequences in the table. I feel like, I guess Sheldon and Anonono are the only ones who have like must-win games this week in the fight for promotion. Although Sheldon is at a point in the table where he's got a slight lead, so he can afford one slip-up, but probably your home field advantage game against Noisel is not the game that you want to use your advantage up on.
Mm.
And yeah, I feel like Paranoid probably, like, if I don't know, he has to start at some point to pick up more points, and this game would probably be a good start. I feel like if he has a chance, he has to pick up points here.
Very nice. Well, that'll wrap up our regular Reddit League coverage. Before we jump to our map, we do have to quickly to mention Reddit League Next and how they are doing. By the look of their scores, Calamity, it was a pretty rough seed for them.
I do also only have 3 minutes, but yeah, it wasn't a super easy seed at all. No, but a pretty good job by Hodi. Leaves him with 5 points. So after 4 weeks and 100,000 points on offer, they're separated by 5 points there at the top, with him and Strassel, which is pretty funny to look at. Uncle had a pretty decent week, which brings him a bit closer again to the others. But yeah, overall, relatively even throughout there. Sort of, I mean, I say relatively even. They're still split apart by like 8,000 points this week, but I feel like we've seen bigger margins. We actually haven't seen bigger margins by much. I feel like this is the second biggest margin. It just looks sort of close because they're all sort of in that 10,000 to 20,000 range. So they all start with a 1. It's kind of close.
Yeah, not bad. Well, good luck to you guys and keep working towards maybe getting a place in Reddit League next season. Keep practicing those maps. As we look at the map itself, this week, Idaho, when I was putting together my slides for the whole season, no one had really played this map before because Calamity made it special for us. 34,670 locations. Simple polygon map of the state of Idaho. Maybe we will start with you, Calamity. Why did you make Idaho map rather than use somebody else's?
Because there wasn't really somebody else's map. I mean, you kind of you need a map for Reddit League that's got a certain minimum amount of locations, and a map with like 200 locations just won't cut it because, you know, knowing the players, probably about half of them will recognize and remember just every single location. So I needed to make a map that at least has a decent amount of locations, and I thought I might as well use a polygon for it. And there was one other map, actually looking at it just now, of Idaho, where it says regional map covering all of Idaho. Some locations go slightly over border, which to me immediately is like an exclusion of like, nope, you just clearly did not bother drawing a polygon correctly. So I'm not giving you the satisfaction of being chosen as a map for Reddit League. No. So I just thought I'd make one myself, and it actually was surprisingly annoying to draw because I mean, thankfully, like the western edge and the southern edge are pretty fine because they're just
the
straight
East Coast,
lines.
though.
But yeah,
Not the East Coast, the East border.
yeah, the east border. Though at least it's like mostly forest, so you don't have too many roads going over the border there, and you don't have to be too accurate in parts where there's no street view. But yeah, so I just thought I'd draw it. It took like 15 minutes or so. And yeah, Idaho in general, I think it's definitely not the hardest state. There's, as I mentioned, I don't remember when exactly, but sometime during the show this week. It's not too populated, so, you know, and it's relatively diverse because it also isn't too small. So you can pretty easily tell which area of the state you're in, and then it's just about whether you can find clues to narrow it down even more. There is a couple of interesting things, like in sort of the south central area. There's quite a bit of almost like a grid system that just goes throughout a lot of like rural areas too. But the road names are actually kind of consistent, where you've got like the typical, you know, this is road 200 east and this is road 300 east, and that goes throughout quite a large area, where you normally think like, why does it just continue throughout this whole area? But that is a bit helpful. I feel like the most difficult part of Idaho, to me at least, was if you're in one of the cities, because there are more cities than you probably imagine, and it's not often easy to tell whether it's like a city with, I don't know, a population of like 15,000 or 100,000. And sort of these smaller cities, there's at least like 10, 15 of them. And it can be pretty difficult to figure out which of them you're in. Like, there's not many up north. So most of them are sort of in the south or on like the western border. And they all kind of look similar. So that's been my most difficult part about Idaho, just trying to figure out how to tell apart those cities.
Yeah, Paschtetli, I know you've been practicing. How have you been finding Idaho?
Yeah, it's mixed feelings actually. Yeah, the cities, I don't find the cities that hard as you just said. It's also maybe because I generally like playing cities more than you do. But if you memorize some names that come up often, like Idaho Falls or what's it called again, Chubbuck, in the eastern southeastern part, and Twin Falls and Boise and Nampa and Geoguessr. These cities are gonna come up pretty often, and if you know how they look and maybe know the road numbers that go through these cities, you'll find out where you are. I think it's not that hard to find out where you are. Calamity, I think you mentioned the grid system earlier. I found it not that useful actually, because I used it twice to pinpoint where I was, and sometimes the road names come up twice in a completely other area of the state, and it happened to me twice that I guessed like where the road names matched, but I was in the completely wrong area. Yeah, which is not that useful. And also there are some roads that road names like are in like there is one I need quickly to look it up. Yeah, exactly. There's a Locust, I think it's pronounced, road in Meridian suburb next to Boise, and one in Twin Falls. And that's not the only one. I think there are others, other road names that come up in more than one city, which is kind of confusing sometimes, because I remember where this road was, and then you guess in the completely wrong city. That's one thing to look out for, certainly. Yeah, and also another thing, maybe learn where the interstates like 84, 15, and 86 are, and also the US highways, like the most important ones, like 93, 26, 20, something like that, 95 also. Yeah, and one last thing, the Interstate 90 up north, east of Coeur d'Alene, around the little town of Kellogg, comes up quite often. If you know which part is which, that will help you a lot. Also, if you memorize which highway exit is where, that can speed up things too. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. As someone who has lived around the area and has family who does live in the area, definitely say get to know a lot of those kind of east-west roads. They can give you a really good sense of where you are north-south, which sounds weird, but like there's only two huge interstates pretty much going through the state, and then lots of little highways. So if you kind of know what those big interstates feel like, and if you're not on one of those, you can kind of ignore them and focus on one of the smaller highways. Just obviously the north part of the state is highly mountainous and forested, while the south is pretty open plains and a bit different. So just noticing that difference can definitely be helpful. Yeah, other than that, it's just kind of small town America, lots of good signs, which for me in America, like if I can figure out what like section I'm in, pinpoint is not that difficult, but it's almost like finding out what part of town you're in could be even the harder part of it. For me, that's just kind of my feeling for the state in there. Well, yeah, thank you all for sticking with us for the whole show. It's always long, lots to talk about, 5 different divisions, plus an interesting map every week. If you want to see how the players are playing, we do cast at least a couple games from every single week across different divisions. So check those out on the channel, and we will see you all next time in Idaho. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.